Hello, my name is Lucas. This is a bit of lit. It's 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep because I accidentally took a short nap at 6 o'clock and woke up at 6:25. Not too late, but even the shortest of naps mean that I won't sleep that night. Anyway, because of that, I finished The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I hope is how you say her name, which is the Man Booker International Prize winner from 2015 or 2016. It's also a 10 Best Books New York Times book review extravaganza from 2016. There are 3 parts to this. There's The Vegetarian, the Mongolian Mark, and then I believe it's called Burning Trees or something. There's also a short excerpt for one of her other books, which I almost dropped this one, Human Acts, just for you to get a taste of what her other works are like. This is her first English book translated into English, from what I remember it saying on the back. I think, anyway, I hope so. This is about a woman who's married to a man, and she decides to become a vegetarian. Now, each section, the Mongolian Mark, the Vegetarian, and Burning Trees, are told from different perspectives. The first story is the Vegetarian. This is the chapter where she becomes a vegetarian, and it is told from the perspective of her husband, who is the most ungrateful pile of crap that any man could be. He doesn't think his wife is anything special, which is not the worst thing that he says by far. That's like, sure, most people are pretty average. Not a good start, buddy. Pretty unlikable. And just these insane expectations he has on her, the way he treats her when she becomes a vegetarian, and enforces her diet on him while at home. He's often not at home anyway. He's off with his career. He never tried hard at all. He expects his wife to do everything for him, give him clothes in the morning, gets really upset when she doesn't, because she starts going into these sort of catatonic states, because there's something going on inside her mind. It's not so much that she just decided to become a vegetarian. She's been having these dreams about faces. The faces always change, but she's also, the other half of the Vegetarian is, seems to be from her perspective, and it is the most violent, grotesque things imaginable done to animals and these kind of things, so we can have an idea of what she's dreaming about, what she's thinking about, what's going on in her mind. But the way her husband treats her, especially when she commits social faux pas after social faux pas at a dinner, with a work dinner with the boss and some other people who are well respected, and the way they all treat her and sort of don't even talk to him because he's associated with her, and then he puts pressure on her to change back to the way she used to be, even though he doesn't think very much of her. Like, just don't be with this woman, putting a lot of pressure on her. This is not the first man that's done this to her and treated her as submissive object. Certainly he gets frustrated with the way she's changed. They're not into it so much anymore. He forces herself on her. He forces he tells her family about what's going on, and they come to intervene, and it gets violent very quickly with her father, who has a history of a violent temper and has treated his daughters this way. But then after that, you know, in the Mongolian mark, she's got a Mongolian mark, some kind of blue mole or something. It's on her butt. um, she tried to commit suicide with a knife, and her sister's husband picked her up and took her to a hospital, and her sister and her husband have been, her sister and her sister's husband have been taking care of her. Her husband has decided that I'm going to divorce her because she's putting me through a lot of trouble. I'm not going to dare try to understand her by any means at all. No. She doesn't understand me, and I'm the one suffering, okay? She brought this on herself, okay? He is a bad guy, and I hate him. But it doesn't get any better, because the husband of her brother-in-law, the husband of her sister, oh my God. He is an artist who doesn't make any money. His wife makes all the money, and they've got a kid, and they are caring for her in her time of distress, and hoping she'll come back to being mentally sound and physically healthy and all these things. And he sees, because she's got this lack of concern for being nude in front of other people, he happens to see her one day, and his art is like these videos, and he's really fascinated with like this Japanese artist who has these psychedelic orgies in his art, and he really wants to do that, and he sees the Mongolian mark, and he starts thinking, I want to paint flowers on her, and I want to make videos of her body, and rationalizes this as being perfectly fine, even though, you know, and then he calls his wife, you know, and tells her he's going to be away, and she tries to be understanding and supportive of this man. He doesn't really explain what he's going to do. He just says, I'm going to be away in the studio, and she's supportive, and he gets mad at her for being supportive. He'd rather her be bitchy and anyway, after painting his sister-in-law, the vegetarian, he decides, I have to record her having sex. It can't be me, it's got to be someone else though, because I'm married. That's wrong. Yeah, isn't that right? Okay. Well, and then he rationalizes that. He asks his friend, and yeah, he paints his friend, and it doesn't really work out, because he thinks this is going a little bit too far. And then he makes a move on his sister-in-law after Jay, his friend, goes away, and she's not interested because she only really wanted him the most she's ever wanted intercourse because of the flowers. So he paints himself and, you know, records himself enjoying her, and, you know, unfortunately for him, plot twist, his wife came the next day, found the record of what's going on, saw everything was very strange, and watched the recordings and was horrified and upset, rightfully so, of course, and has them institutionalized briefly. He gets out because he's deemed not clinically insane. Her sister, the vegetarian, is, so she has to stay in. Once he gets out, he just disappears, only making a phone call asking about their son much later. And then the final chapter, Burning Trees, is all about her experience with dealing with her, being her sister's sole carer, and it Flaming Trees, I'm sorry. That's embarrassing. I called it Burning Trees 3 times. It's Flaming Trees, okay. Embarrassing. We've got underwear in the background. Let's ignore that. Oops. Anyway. there. But we're gonna move on. Yeah, it's about her caring for her sister and in the ward, and it's in present tense and it's in past tense. The first one is in first person. First, the vegetarian is in first person, and then flaming trees and the Mongolian mark are in third person, but they follow one character. And this one follows the sister of the vegetarian, and yeah, about her being the carer and visiting her in the ward, and about their past with their father, who was not a good man, very abusive, and wondering, is that what caused her to make this dramatic emotional shift? She's had it bottled up. She also reminisces on the relationship with her husband that she had, which was unhappy, uneventful, and fraught with a man who didn't actually seem all that interested in her, was always tired and busy with his own things, kind of like the other man who didn't really seem to care about his wife. I mean, come on, who are these people? Terrible men. I think you can probably tell what this book is trying to get at. I have heard, though, that there was a lot of frustration with the translation of this book by Deborah Smith, because it's more of an adaptation, which I think is something that, I mean, I don't know exactly what is so different. I'm sure that it is a big concern for it to miss some of the important nuances. I've also read that it was the translation was defended by somebody in The Guardian, saying it makes it more marketable in the West, which is, I guess, great. I mean, I enjoyed reading the book, even though nobody was particularly likable. Yeah, well, anyway, in the ward, we see she's unresponsive, and she's talking about how she wants to become a tree, the vegetarian, and she doesn't want to eat anymore, not even meat. She doesn't want to eat fruit. She just wants water. She wants to be a tree, and a flaming tree. And there's a very violent moment where they're trying to feed her, because the institution she's in is, they're dedicated to keeping their patients alive, and she does not want that, so she fights with all of her strength, and then some, and yeah, it gets really violent, and they have a final confrontation, eye to eye, with each other, the two sisters, which I will leave to you to find out. I've spoiled pretty much everything, but I think the book is pretty good. Now, the translation, I don't know, I am wondering, what are the nuances that are missing, and what has been added to make this more marketable to the West? I don't know. I'm happy to have read this book. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it had a lot of interesting things to say about gender dynamics in Korea. A lot of sad things, mostly. Yeah, I enjoyed the book. I do wonder if the changes to make it more marketable were necessary. I mean, maybe it wouldn't have won the Man Booker International Prize. Who knows? Would it be would I like it as much? Would I like it more? Would I understand it? I don't know. But I read that South Korean audiences who saw the English translation were not too happy with it. I don't know what to make of that. I have been reading quite a few translations, mostly Chinese books, and yeah, it's always an interesting thing to think about how closely do you follow the author's vision when their vision is for a completely different audience than the people that are going to read the finished translation. I don't know. I hope it's not too different. I would be curious to know what it's like in Korean, but I don't think I'll ever learn Korean. Never know. But if I do, I may not ever return to this book. I don't know. Anyway, that's that. Thank you.